Good afternoon, Flagstone certified staff. I wanted to spend the next 5 minutes on a screencast to let you guys know about our annual acknowledgement form that we have to do regarding the site evaluation process. So first I want to talk about some dates and what is required and optional at Flagstone. So this August, which is right now, I need to take you through our evaluation process. So when you do start goal setting next week, you're going to know what the year-long process looks like. So that is required, and I will talk to you about an acknowledgement form that you need to complete and email me, forward me the email that you get from the Google Doc that's sent to you acknowledging that you did listen to this whole presentation. Also in August, you need to select and review the designated evaluation rubric in Inspired Ed if you haven't done that yet, and I'll show you how to do that. By September, you need to submit your beginning of the year self-evaluation in Inspired. That is required at Flagstone. It's not optional. I think it's important that each year we go in and we look at the CITE evaluation rubric and we rate ourselves on what we think and where we think we are at that point. So that is due by September 14th. By the 15th is your deadline to submit professional goals in Inspired. So we are going to submit our goals in Inspired, and we'll work with you that in your goal setting conference. And that needs to be done by September 15th. First semester, if you are a probationary and non-probationary teacher, your first formal observation or your only formal observation will take place before your December snapshot, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. Middle of the year is due before your mid-year snapshot, so that will be due in December, and all this will be reminded of you in the Friday Focus as well. The teacher acknowledgement, middle of the year, will be required at Flagstone, and then by February 7th, you will notify your administrator if you want a second look, and I'll talk to you about that too. April 8th is our deadline to submit our end of the year evaluation, self-evaluation Inspired, and then May 1st, all evaluations have to be submitted in Inspired Ed, and then by May 4th, you'll be able to see your final evaluation, and May 15th, you need to acknowledge. So this all was in the Friday Focus last week, so you can make note of that and look at any of those deadlines should you need them. All right, for the formal presentation that we're required to give, I'm going to buzz through these slides because I did ask you to look through them already. So this is the presentation that we're required to do for all teachers in Douglas County. So the key considerations for evaluation. The whole point of the certified evaluation process, and classified for that matter, is to make sure that it is a collaborative process and it's ongoing throughout the year. There should never be a time that you're surprised by a snapshot or by a rating. And if there's something that you have a question on, you should feel very comfortable coming to your evaluator and talking through it. If you've been here for a long time, there was a big emphasis on evidence before. We are not going to have that emphasis. It's going to be based on practice. And Meg and I will be in your rooms, so we'll be able to see in action. We certainly do not want you to create different evidence pieces just for the purpose of an evaluation. We want it to be authentic on what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. For the evaluation cycle, it does come pretty consistently throughout the school year. So you have your beginning of the year tasks, which you're doing this month and a little bit of September. You are setting your goals in the fall. There is a middle of the year connection. Meg and I will be releasing your mid-year snapshots before you go to winter break, so you have a good idea of what your ratings look like. And then we'll be working on your spring summatives, and then you'll have your end of the year task, which are deadlines that I just went through. Also for rubrics, I'll show you in a second where to log in to Inspired so that you can assign your rubric. So the generalist rubric is for all classroom teachers K2, and the educator rubric is for pretty much everyone else. And they are the same with the exception of changing some of the language around student groups and just your teacher name. Some of it says education teacher, some of it says interventionist, but essentially the elements are the same. So for the CITE rubrics, this is the same as last year, and it was new last year. So standard 1 is culture and climate, standard 2 is professionalism, standard 3 planning, standard 4 assessment, and standard 5 is instruction. So just think about standard 1 and 2 as what the teacher does to create these elements within the classroom and within the school. I want you to really focus this year, that climate and culture piece. Meg and I are going to be really looking for how are you connecting with kids, building relationships with kids, creating that classroom environment where kids feel that experiences are authentic and they're part of that collaborative learning process with you as their facilitator. So that's really going to be what culture and climate looks like this year. And then professionalism, I talked about that early in the year. Professionalism, what we're going to look for is how are you getting outside of your classroom, aligning yourself vertically, K-6. What are you doing to contribute to our school-wide vision of perspective and bettering all students at Flagstone? And we're doing a lot of this through our flexible groupings, through RTI, and our building leadership team. So consider those things when you're thinking about your professionalism. And then teaching, this is all that good stuff. You're planning, how are you instructing, how are you assessing that the kids are learning it? So those are all the pieces around that one. So they do have standards, elements, and then there's some indicators. So your standards are the big rocks, the elements describe those standards, and the indicators show how you're progressing within those elements. So the CITE rubrics, I think this is an important piece that we haven't really discussed. We didn't discuss it last year, but I think it's important to look at. So when determining a rating for each element, what Meg and I look for is, do all the indicators of level 2, are all of those met? And if they are all met, then we move you up to that 3. And this is the same for my evaluation with Danelle. So I have to meet all of those level 2 indicators to then move up to level 3. And then if all those 3 are met, then we move up to level 4. So in our growth model, a level 2 represents foundational practice, and then the next level builds on that foundational practice and adds additional components. So I just think it's important that you think about this as a growth model. So if you are a 2, that's the foundational, and then we're moving you towards other areas. So for Inspired, we're going to do it much like last year. We're going to put your goals in Inspired Ed, and then your snapshots will be Inspired. We're going to keep those walkthrough documents within the walkthrough document. Meg and I are determining whether we're going to use some feedback tools in Inspired, but Inspired will be where we house all of your lead evaluations. You can add evidence if you like to do that, but it is not a requirement, and we really feel like as your evaluator, the heavy lifting needs to be on us to provide evidence for ratings on each of those. But certainly you are welcome to upload or share any elements that you'd love us to see, because we obviously can't be in your classrooms all the time. So self-evaluation at Flagstone, we are going to do a beginning, middle, and end, and I'll remind you of all of those dates. I think it's important that we get in there and we put ratings on ourselves as far as where we are now and where we want to be, and I think reviewing that evaluation each fall is really a good benchmark for all of us. So for goal setting, you're going to be starting those next week. And this is what's going to provide evidence for us on CITE 2.2. I really want you to consider in your goal setting how you're going to get outside yourself, especially if you're a returning staff member. If you're a new staff member, I want you to think about practicality. So what are you working on your first year? You're really working on how are you spending your time planning? What does your assessment look like? How are you engaging kids in learning? Those are all great strategies or great goals to set for goal setting. But I think the big thing, we want to get you into good habits this year around lesson planning and organization. So those are great goals for new teachers. Observations. What is required, Meg and I will be in your room giving walkthroughs throughout the year. We hope to have each of us come in every month and give some kind of feedback, but we'll be popping in and out of rooms all the time. For the formal cycle, though, if you're a probationary teacher, you'll have one before winter break and one after winter break. And we really schedule those October and January. So be thinking about what you want to do for your lessons at those points. If you're a returning teacher, a veteran teacher, a non-probationary teacher, we're going to get yours done October, November, so that we can have that data for your mid-year snapshot. Mid-year tasks and connections, I talked about this a little bit. The snapshot is optional, but we are going to make it required for Meg and I. We are going to send those snapshots out mid-year. We think it's only fair that you know kind of what the projection is that you're on before you head into winter break. Summative evaluations, you'll be given some timelines through the Friday Focus of when you need to have your self-evaluation due. That is required through the system. It does represent the final piece of your evaluation, and it is something that we'll send out ahead of time if we think there's going to be anything that you might be surprised about or you're not sure of, and then we sit down and have a collaborative conversation about that in plenty of time for you to talk and work through any questions that you might have on that. And then summative ratings, an educator's final evaluation is comprised of the first 5. So those are your professional practice ratings, Cite 1 through 5. And then Cite 6, if you think of a pie, half of the pie is Cite 1 through 5 and the other half is Cite 6. For new staff, we'll talk more about Cite 6 later. You don't need to worry about that right now, and we'll walk you through what that looks like. The overall rating is determined by averaging those 2 things in, and that is the score that is reported to the state. So you have Cites 1 through 5, which we rate you on. Cite 6 is that student performance data, and then your overall rating, which is what is reported to the state, is that combination of both. And here is the review process. If for some reason through the summative you disagree with your evaluation, there is a second look process and an appeals process, and that's all linked within this presentation if you're interested in that. And then here are the resources that you can link to. Evaluation guidebook. Most of you are going to pick that generalist rubric unless you're a specialist. You're going to pick the educator rubric. And then the CITE goal setting form. We have created the goal setting form for you, so that's what you're going to be using. And that is something that Meg and I will upload into Inspired, and we will set that goal with you. And then you can look at the CITE cut scores. That's something that if you're interested in, you can look at it. And then here's the link to Inspired, and I'll show you that just a second if you haven't done that yet. And then your evaluator's guide to element rationale. I really suggest that you click on this because this is really the guide that I use when I'm doing ratings. And Meg and I look through this quite a bit. So if you look at this guide, it talks a little bit about what to look for. So if, for example, in this first one, this for culture and climate, what does learning environment look for? Descriptions or expectations. This would be what a level 2 is, which is your foundational skills. And then it would move to a level 3 or a level 4. And those are great indicators when we come into classrooms and we look at that kind of stuff. So that is there for you to look at. Let's see. Then I was going to show you Inspired. So clicking on this, my view does not look the same as yours. So I'll show you how, if you haven't done it already, or if you have done it and it's wrong, how you can fix it. So the first time you log into something, you are going to be asked, and it will prompt you. And if you haven't done that, do that now. Bookmark this page because you will need to get back into this. You're going to go up. If you've already done it, you should see your name up here and what your assignment is. If you don't see that, it would have walked you through what to do. Let's say you clicked the wrong rubric. You can always edit it. So you can go and click that edit button right there. And then you're going to pick the school that you're at, what's your instructional area, and then what rubric, and that's where you pick generalist or educator rubric, and then you save it and go back to the dashboard. So that's how you would add it. Please make sure that you go and do that prior to your goal setting so that we can get all of that done. Okay, once you are finished with this presentation, I need you to click on this link, and again, this presentation is in the Friday Focus. You need to click on this, and this is the acknowledgement that you have listened to this presentation. At the bottom, it is going to send you a copy of your responses. It will be emailed to your email. I need you to forward, when you get that copy, forward it to me so I know that you have done the acknowledgement. So I hope that helps. If you have any questions about evaluation and CITE, please don't hesitate to ask Meg or I. The big thing you need to think about right now is what is your goal? If you can, get into that Google Classroom, look at what other people are setting for their goals. It's really great to kind of peruse that discussion page and see kind of what you're thinking, and then come in with a solid foundation of what your goal is going to be on that goal setting doc, and then we will go from there. Please make sure that you read the top of it and bring all those things to your goal setting. All right, thank you and have a great weekend.